Well, an hour to go here on Daybreak on TV 47 of the Alabama Cable Network. I'm joined by Joe Richardson. And Joe, good morning to you, sir.
Good morning.
How's the recuperation going?
It's going pretty good. I had surgery 2 weeks ago today. And
hospital take care of you?
I'll tell you what, I can't say enough good things about Dr. Campos and his staff and the staff at Coosa Valley Medical Center. Still got a few staples. They'll come out later this week, and I'll return to work next week.
You've dropped a few pounds, I see, too.
Actually, I've dropped 40 since December of 2010. And, you know, it's a long process, but feel much better, and still have about another 20 to go, and then I'm going to kind of see where I'm at that point.
Joe Richardson representing the Animal Rescue Foundation. On one hand, we're going to talk about several things this morning, but let's get to the Animal Rescue Foundation and the ongoing conversations that you're having with the city and city government. Where are we on this?
Well, there's been a series of meetings over the last few months and actually over the last few days to try to resolve some of the ongoing issues. As you well know, going back in time, the shelter was a real problem. The city came to us and asked us to get involved, individuals that are now on the board. We've restored credibility. We've raised literally tens of thousands of dollars to keep the place afloat. And it's a lot cleaner, better environment. But there are costs involved with that. And any time that money is involved, you know, I guess tensions flare and things of that nature. But the bottom line is that we have a shelter that is better than it has ever been in history. And we've raised a lot of money. But the city, we've approached the city for additional funding, and back in February they agreed to additional funding, and a formula was developed, particularly with the animal control animals, that it would be $90 was what we figured was our cost over a certain amount, which I think the amount was those animal control animals over 40, that we would bill, which would be $90 for a 7-day period. At that time when it was agreed upon, we didn't break it down any further than that. We've submitted several invoices since then. There have been ongoing conversations about those invoices. You know, our invoicing procedure is pretty complicated.
You even got the doggies' pictures on there, don't you?
The animal's picture is shown, whether it be dead or alive, and we have to turn it, you try to tie it to a specific address, note the behavior of the animal. This is what we turn into the city. Part of the problem that we've had is these color pictures that we had to tie to this caused the Excel program to crash 4 times. And we don't have a full-time accountant or bookkeeper working for us. We're volunteers and animal control people, or you know, taking care of the animals. And so this has been a real burden. But you know, we have done the best that we can. There are things that happen once, you know, it's cut off at the end of the month. An animal might die right after that, or something like that, or we have to put it down, so adjustments have to be made. But unfortunately, it seems that these invoices and the documentation for them have been the source of a lot of the discussion and controversy.
You guys met on Friday.
Well, let's go back in another week. I was basically fresh out of the hospital a week ago today. The mayor had asked me to come in and meet with, I had not met Officer Taylor, and I think she's a great addition to Sylacauga. I think she's going to do a super job as an animal control animal officer. You know, we hadn't had one for months until she was hired, and she was hired from Montgomery. She's got a lot of great ideas, but we're not Montgomery yet. We have a long way to go. And so I could not drive. I went Monday. I had my brother was in town, took me up there. I still had tubes and all this, but I met with him for about 30 minutes, and we discussed a variety of issues, this being one of them. And I understood that maybe we needed to break down that $90 over 7 days into some kind of daily rate that, after it appears on the invoice, something might happen, and that we needed to bill for actual costs. But a lot of our costs are front-loaded too. When an animal comes in there, we have to treat it right away. So we had a good conversation of about 30 minutes, and then apparently, shortly after that, there was a meeting at City Hall. We know basically when it took place and who was in there and what was discussed, and it was decided that it would come up at the work session. Now, I had already agreed to address some of these issues.
Who was in that meeting?
I don't know exactly, so I'm not going to say.
All right.
But we had 2 telephone calls tipping us off that there had been a meeting and it was coming up at the work session, and that Councilman Smith was going to bring the issue up. And of course, it appeared that some people, I'm staying focused on the animals and the shelter and what we've got to do, but some folks think it was kind of politically manipulated, or that, and that it was aimed. And so at that point, after that meeting, and it did come up, the council did approve the invoice, but with questions.
And that was what, $5,510?
Well, that's the total of all of them. Yeah, for the month. And then we met, and Debbie made the decision that, in discussing billing issues and that kind of thing as the president, and she is still the president, and I'm going to tell you, the shelter would be in a heck of a mess without the work of all the volunteers, but specifically what she's done to raise money and improve the situation at the shelter. That she would take herself out of that, and instead I have been the focal point for the discussion on the billings as the chairman. And so we had a meeting on Friday. Celeste Landers and John Floyd attended. John's daughter is on the board, but he has been a great benefactor to us and supporter. And the 4 representatives from the city, we discussed the billing. We agreed that we would get back with them and look at some things that we needed to.
Who are the 4 representatives of the city at this meeting?
Trish Carden, Yolanda from her office, the mayor, and Officer Taylor. Okay. And so I think we made pretty good progress. We agreed to continue a dialogue. There were times when maybe the conversation got testy. I think we look at things, ARF and the city look at things a little bit differently. There was some conversation about how much money the city is giving us. If the ARF wasn't there, the city would be providing these services. Over the last few years, up until this change, the city was funding to the tune of $29,000. But we were having to raise, through fundraising and private donations, $60,000 to $80,000 a year to keep it afloat. And that, coupled with volunteer time, you figure in the last 10 years and things that we've had donated, the ARF has probably totals somewhere between $600,000 and $700,000 to operate the shelter that the ARF has raised, that the city hasn't had to pay, because if ARF wasn't there, they would have to operate that shelter.
Let me ask you something. Why does it seem, and it is appears to be in the public eye in a lot of sectors, that this is a very awkward relationship between the Animal Rescue Foundation and the City of Sylacauga and the animal shelter. How do you see that?
Well, I'll tell you, it's that anytime money's involved, I mean, before this board got put in, and basically we were recruited and asked to take over, and that's what we did to restore the credibility. It was kind of just like out there on its own, and everyone knew that things were going on out there, that but it was a necessity, but it wasn't a pleasant situation. And I think we've restored the credibility of it. But anytime money gets involved, Things happen, and I'm going to tell you, it's unfortunate that a lot of people seem to think that this is a political issue. Cats and dogs don't vote, but people do, and they sure love their pets more than their politicians. And we're going to the ARF board is going to stay focused on our mission. And that's it. I think one of the reasons why we are so doggedly still in this, and this comes from just talking to our board members, in meetings, is because we care about the animals. We really do. If, most city pounds, which is what they basically are 7 days and down. In other words, an animal comes in there for 7 days. If it's not claimed in 7 days or not adopted in 7 days, it's put down. That's not the vision we see for Sylacauga. And so we're determined in whatever role we take, whether it be a continued operation of the shelter with the city and working together, which is certainly what we hope to do, or if we go our separate ways, we're going to focus on adoption and spay and neuter and having pets available, good pets available for the public. And it's unfortunate that we can't seem to get over these issues and move on, because certainly all this controversy has hurt the ARF in our fundraising. There's no question about it. But there isn't one of those members on the ARF board that hasn't given thousands of dollars over the last few years. The ARF board is made up of all of us, and the issue on the billing and anything else is not an issue with one individual. It's with about 10 of us that are on that board, and we're trying to, like I said, we're trying to stay focused on what we're doing, I do think that the meeting Friday was positive. It's something that we've got to continue. There are a lot of holes that we have to fill. We've got to update the animal control ordinance. There are going to have to be some real tough decisions made.
Such as?
Animals running free.
How do you fix that? You
either have a fence or you use some type of restraint.
You can't make people do that, though, can you?
You can fine them. Other cities are doing things like that. The spay and neuter. Sometimes, and it's unfortunate, but people don't have to come to the shelter to adopt an animal. They can go out to the Walmart parking lot and pick one up, or downtown.
Across the TV station.
Yeah, exactly. So, we've got to stop this indiscriminate, allowing animals to just continue to have puppies and kittens. People have got to be responsible pet owners, because they've got to realize that it is a continued tax burden on the citizens, regardless of who runs that shelter. It's a continued tax burden on the citizens, and we're going to have some tough decisions, but Sylacauga is known for the quality of life, so it shouldn't be that difficult. We've got the best schools. We've got a lot of things to brag about, and the shelter should be one of them.
Joe Richardson, our guest from the Animal Rescue Foundation this morning, and of course their continued negotiation with the city of Sylacauga. And I think is it the budget for the fiscal year ends September the 30th, so something certainly has to be worked out by then.
Yeah, our current contract runs out September 30th, and according to the contract, if either side is not going to renew, either the city, I don't want to say either side, but you know what I mean, either the city or the ARF is not going to renew, there's a 60-day notice, and that would be pretty quick here.
What happens, just say, if the city of Sylacauga says, okay, we're going to take over the operations? Talk about getting your arms around what's going on out there and what's happening in our city with our animals. I mean,
Well,
actually it'd take a lot of effort, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, for example, Officer Taylor just came on board. We went 4 or 5 months without one. She is doing her job now. She's picking up animals. This month, year to date, as of last night, we already have 40 animal control animals that have come in. We have a total of 103 dogs as of opening this morning, and 40 of them were animal control animals. We have citizen surrender, we have drop-offs and things of that nature.
So that means that part is working.
Yeah, that's working, but it means that we still have the volume of animals out there. You can't take an animal out there and not treat it initially, because, and we saw that unfortunately recently when a cat was dropped off and it had feline distemper, and it went through the cat room.
Wow.
And we had to make some tough decisions. You know, our staff did. We have paid staff. They don't have benefits. City employees are going to have benefits. They're going to have to go through, I guess, a civil service process. And so they would be city employees. The city did give us a truck. It came, I think, through the utilities board. And the city has assisted in the maintenance of that. But we have had to go out and get donations. We got a transmission donated when it went out. So there's equipment maintenance that's got to be done. You know, we got the coolers because of the heat issues donated. The city would have had to pay for that kind of equipment. So and just for example, food. All of our pet food is donated. If the city's going to operate it, they're going to have to buy food. So there's a tremendous amount of expense that's involved. You know, we've been talking about the fact that, and we've checked it out over and over again, Talladega, including the county's portion, is spending between $180,000 and $200,000. And so that's probably about close to what it's going to cost. That which is above what the city funds us, we have to raise in contributions and fundraising. So it's going to be an additional burden to the taxpayer.
Do you see spay and neutering as effective? Has it improved? I know that happens there, but as far as educating pet owners?
You know, one of the things that we're trying to do now, and I think it's going to be the key, is we got to start educating the kids. The parents, it doesn't seem to be making any difference. But if we start working in the schools the importance of spay and neuter, they'll understand. Because, you know, it's one of those situations that we can't go pick up. We don't have the funds to go pick up all these animals out on the street, spay and neuter them, and set them back loose. Some cities have done that, and it's worked remarkably well. But it takes years to do that. And so it's an educational process. And we've tried in the last few months to let people know that it's hitting them in the wallet. Because, and that's, you know, kind of gets back to what we've been fussing about over the last few months is money. It's going to be a cost. So there's going to have to be a decision that animals must be spayed and neutered in the city of Sylacauga unless they're used for specific breeding and that kind of thing. And there's got to be some teeth in it, and it's got to be enforced.
You talked about, and by the way, Joe Richardson, our guest this morning from Animal Rescue Foundation. A couple more minutes with he. Appreciate you coming by this morning. Hopefully you'll continue to get better with post-op.
Yeah, every day gets a little better.
Yeah. You talked about it in some circles. It is thought to be political. It is political season. Municipal election coming up in late August. A lot of talk about a lot of different issues, and most of it centers around money, funding. Well, this has got to be dealt with from a funding issue as well.
Yeah, and of course, local governments are required to have a shelter, required to have animal control. Now, the city may determine if they take it back over to contract with the city of Talladega, which the county does, and that's well and good if that's their determination. But there are costs involved that, again, we have been raising the funds to cover those additional costs. And the city would have to bear those costs. That means there'll have to be some tough decisions in the budget, and they'll have to take a look at all priorities. And I think that's, people want a lot of things. You talk about the political season. I haven't heard a candidate that's not for sportsplex. I haven't heard a candidate say that they're not for additional paving, and drainage issues and all that. And of course, you've got to have your basic services, police and fire and code enforcement and things of that nature. But all that's money.
I don't know, Joe, if I've heard maybe one or so, not many candidates. I don't remember any at the forum addressing the animal control, and that may not be on the top of the list, but it is something that's going to have to be dealt with in the new administration.
Absolutely, no question about it, and those are the kinds of things that people need to be asking the folks running for office. Where do you stand on this? Where do you stand on animal control? I just want to assure the folks that the ARF is doing the best possible job we can do, and we're committed to working on this issue and resolving any of these outstanding issues, simple issues on this billing. If they have questions about where we stand, and that goes for the councilman too, if they have questions on the billing, come to us. We'll answer them. We'll be more than happy to. We'll sit down with them and go through the billing. One of the things that was pointed out is, I guess, an animal, this is an end of the month cutoff, and an animal the day after it appeared on here got out of the shelter and ran away. Some of these dogs are actually eating through the chain link, and some of them have to be outside. Well, absolutely, there'll be an adjustment there on that. But this is a whole lot of detail, and one of the things is we've got to try to tie it down to a specific address, which is difficult in the case of stray animals and that kind of thing. And if it's not in the city's not paying for it. Well, somebody's got to.
No.
So we've got to also approach the county about doing their fair share too.
Well, hopefully the city leaders and the Animal Rescue Foundation can keep it on the high ground and work toward a final solution to this. And a note this morning before we close: how do you separate professionally from personal? Because you're an animal lover, and I'm sure that probably some things that you see and hear kind of bother you on a personal level a little bit.
Yeah, and you just have to stay focused on the mission at hand. Could I go out there and make the decision? Could I put the X's on the cards, on the cages, to determine which ones have to be put down? No. I couldn't do that. But I know that the mission of the ARF is important, and we have to stay focused on basically one dog or one cat or kitten or puppy at a time. If we adopt one or two more next month than we did this month, that's a victory. If we get the point across that people need to spay and neuter their animals and we keep them off the street, that's a victory. It just comes in very small steps. But you're right. I know the practical side of this and the unfortunate side of it. We're at less than 92%. We're less than 8% adoption. 92% of the animals are put down eventually. That is a horrible percentage, but it's better than it was.
8%.
Yeah. And in Calhoun County, where the county runs animal control, but they work with the rescue organizations, it's about 25% adoption. That's where we want to start moving in that direction. But as long as the ARF has the entire burden, and we can't focus on what is our real mission, which is rescue, which is adoption, spay and neuter, and getting those animals out to healthy, loving homes, we're not going to get that there. That's why we have got to work in cooperation with the city. Yes, 90 to 92% meet that fate.
Wow.
And that's
Joe Richardson, our guest this morning, and I know the meetings, the Animal Rescue Foundation, are open to the public, the board meetings and stuff like that.
We have a meeting tomorrow night at 5:30. I believe it's going to be at the chamber. I'm not sure of the ARF board, where we're going to take a look at these billing rates and break them down more in conjunction with what we've committed to the city to do. And then we're going to get back with the city later in the week, and we'll present to them the billing adjustments as far as the rates go, and looking at, like, for example, there's a question about litters. If there's a mama and the puppies and we can't treat the puppies, well, how should they be billed, and that kind of thing. So there's a lot of little technicalities that we've got to work out, but we're still focused on our mission. And
shifting to another gear, you and David McCurley do wide open racing, and that's been a lot of fun, hasn't it?
It has been a lot of fun. I mean, I missed one, and that was because I still had these tubes, and that was like 2 days after surgery. But to have
DL.
Yeah. When we had Donnie Allison live on the phone, and of course we taped that. It was tremendous. There were a couple times there I think Hunter had to stay real close because Donnie's a little salty with his language sometimes.
He's an old guy,
but we're hoping to get Red Farmer on in the near future. Having Jimmy Creed on a couple times with his book has been tremendous, and that's the kind of thing we want to do. We're having fun doing it. We hope to get some folks from the track down here pretty quick.
Indianapolis this weekend, isn't it?
Indianapolis this weekend. I've been there. I'm going to tell you, it's a great track. It's a great trip, going and seeing the history there and everything. But, people talk about rednecks and racing. The worst I've ever seen were in Indiana. They really were. But it's going to be a great race.
Right. Joe, thanks for being with us.
Thank you.
Joe Richardson from the Animal Rescue Foundation, co-host also of Wide Open Racing, which you can see this Wednesday night live on the Alabama Cable Network and TV 47 from 8 until 9 o'clock. They take your phone calls and take your winners and losers and all that kind of stuff. So hope you can join them. We'll be back with more on Daybreak right after you watch this.